But what we're going to do today is look at colonial Virginia after initial settlement. When people are coming here after the starving time, they're building this new colony, and society is starting to take its own unique flavor. One of the things I want you guys to take away from this colonial period is that colonial Virginia and its social structure is very different from Massachusetts, from colonial Rhode Island. Each colony really does kind of have its own distinct traditions, government, culture, and it's shaped by who goes there as well as the climate. So if we look at colonial Virginia right off the bat, anything strike you about this opening image? This is an image of Westover Plantation owned by William Byrd and his wife. His hair is done up prim and proper. She is in a very, very lavish dress. And you can see, does it look like these people are going to go plant some tobacco, harvest tobacco, chop down some trees? No, these are plantation owners. These are gentlemen. These are gentry, kind of landed aristocracy. So what we're going to get in Virginia is this structured, right, society in which you have landed aristocracy on top. You kind of have laborers known as indentured servants. And then afterward, really in 1676, we're going to get really the influx of true American slavery as it later develops on. So we have three groups that settle Virginia, and this is kind of a window into how the South in general is kind of settled for now until we talk about the backcountry. They have their own distinct culture and settler group, really with the Scotch-Irish, and they kind of do their own thing. So first group off the bat, Cavaliers. Second group, indentured servants. And then the third group coming en masse at a later period are enslaved Africans starting around 1619 but intensifying in the 1670s. So if we look at the Cavaliers, what they're fleeing from in England, this time period you have a lot of political unrest in England. You have the English Civil War in which 180,000 people die. You have royalists fighting Puritans who are pro-parliament, and it is a slaughter fest back and forth. So if you think about a push factor driving people out of England, a lot of people are trying to escape political violence, escape war. These Cavaliers are on the losing side of that English Civil War. The king, Charles II, actually loses his head. They cut off his head, and his royalist supporters were kind of persecuted afterwards. So they're like, we're not going to hang out in England to wait for Cromwell and to persecute us. Cromwell was kind of like the dictator that was taking over after the Civil War. Has anyone ever heard that name before, Cromwell? Named after anyone here super Irish? Yeah, if you go to Ireland even nowadays, a huge insult is the curse of Cromwell upon you. He went to Ireland, invaded, put down some rebellions there, and he's known as someone who scourged the land, mass theft, rape, murder. He's kind of an Irish folk villain, even now to this day. So during that period, roughly 30,000 Cavaliers are going to Virginia and the Carolinas. And you should note that when they come to the Americas, they're leaving estates like this, right? This is actually Berkeley Castle, I believe in Gloucestershire, England. Yeah, nice. Would you want to leave this? No, this is pretty nice. Why would you leave a castle like this, right? But if we think about England and the way that their inheritance worked, they practice something called primogeniture, which means that when I die, if I have children, my land, my estate, my wealth would pass on. That's the inside of it. One of the chambers on the inside. Absolutely, I love this building to go through it. It's stunning. This whole colonial Virginia has truly beautiful architecture. The first representative government in the colonies, and something I want you guys to know, hint, 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 test question, takeaway. One of the things that I want you to take away from today is the fact that Virginia is kind of independent before it ever declared its independence. Massachusetts is independent before it ever declares independent. Can Britain, the king and parliament, help these guys out in Virginia? Or regulate them at all, really? No. You have civil war in England. You have economic downturn. Not to mention, they are 3 to 4 months and one trip and thousands of miles away. So if you want to have law, order, military, any type of government, you're building that yourselves. So Virginia is really becoming its own country, its own nation that's within the British Empire, even at this time. And this was an aristocratic male landowners were elected to the legislature. But Virginia at this time would have been the most democratic place on earth, which is really astonishing to think about how revolutionary Virginia and Massachusetts will become, right? Next one, we get to indentured servants. All right, it's kind of right in the name. These guys and ladies are servants. So these Cavaliers come over, and oftentimes they're given huge tracts of land in the best area. And do these rich people want to work the land themselves? No. What they do is they hire poor people from England, from Scotland, from Ireland, in order to come over and do the hard labor. So it's very expensive, though, to cross the Atlantic. You have to pay for food for 3 months. It costs more than twice people's annual wages. So how are people going to get over? One of the things they do is they sell themselves. They literally sell themselves into servitude. What they say is, all right, you pay for my food, and they go to a company, like the Virginia company, and they say, you pay for my food, my lodging, you find me a place to work when I get there, and in order to pay off the voyage as well as those fees, I will work for 4 to 8 years for you. 4 to 8 years clearing land, farming, doing whatever the contract holder needs to be done. At the end, they get freedom dues, so they might get a bit of money. They might get tools. They might get land. But if we think about this, what do you think the average life expectancy for one of these guys would be?
20.
A year, 20, 3 years, 4 to 8 years, yes. 50 to 60% die within the first 4 to 8 years. So you can imagine, you have people coming over in the first 4 to 8 years, over half of these people are going to be dead. You think about it, you are going into an area that you want to take a thick forest and turn it into this, tobacco fields. That takes a lot of labor, right? You have to chop down, move trees, which is super dangerous. You have to physically exert yourself like crazy. You're fighting with natives while you're there. You might be raided back and forth. At the same time, all of that physical exertion makes you more prone to disease. And if we think about the temperature in Virginia, right, it's very warm. You have a lot of diseases, insects. They actually describe the people in Virginia as being very yellow and sickly in around the Chesapeake area. They would have a yellowish appearance because they were dealing with so much. Oh, by the way, if you also survive and you're one of these indentured servants after all of that labor, the land that you're going to get, you also have to clear yourself. You have to go, and it's probably not very good land. Cavaliers had all the good land close to the coast where you could tobacco farm, and they would say, hey, I'm giving you a piece of land, maybe 50 miles inland. It's completely forested, and by the way, guess who lives there? Natives. So they go there, they work so hard for this land, they start building up a farmstead, maybe it's raided. Next thing you know, English-native wars. Yes. They cut up the contract in a weird way, so that way when you have one half and the company has another, you put them back together and you could say, oh, this is the legitimate contract that I agreed to. It was 4 years, not 5 years, when people tried to mess with you. When you were an indentured servant, you couldn't marry. If you had children, you'd have another year added on because your contract holder had to help pay for your child. So it is interesting. A lot of slaves, when they first come over, are treated very much like indentured servants. Maybe in a few years they'll be freed and given land west, but that changes with what we will talk about next class.